Hello, welcome to Podnas. This is a sports show with some Southern and Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Jarrett Roser. It's big news today. We've got a big news day because Southern lost to Florida A&M. So let's kick off with that and let's start. Nothing really else happened in Baton Rouge over the weekend. But
correct.
Yes. Let's get into it because Brian Kelly was fired from LSU. If I look happy, it's because I am.
I'm just so eager to see. I'm not expecting you to stay professional the entire time,
No,
but
no.
I'm interested to see if we can stay professional adjacent and like not fire off wildly into just like berating.
No, okay. So Texas A&M comes into LSU this weekend, and they just beat the brakes off of LSU. The first time in over 20 years that anyone has scored 35 unanswered points. I'm sorry, 25 unanswered points. Anyway, something with a 5 and a double-digit number.
So it was
not pretty.
It was an 18-14 LSU lead at halftime, and then 5 straight touchdowns by A&M that changed, obviously, not only the complexion of the game, but a whole lot more because at halftime, the topic that we're about to devote this show to was not about to happen, but
yeah,
here we are.
Now, there was a report that Scott Woodward and Brian Kelly had a very contentious and hot meeting that kind of evolved into the firing of Brian Kelly, which happened last night. I've been on the record before. I don't think he was a good fit. It sucks to see anyone lose their job for whatever reason. That is absolutely
hot
true.
Take on the
That's
fence.
a hot take. Yeah. But Brian Kelly never really fit in with this LSU program and with kind of the way that he got very up in arms with media and with, critical fan reaction to things. And while, 2 10-win seasons, Heisman Trophy winner, the expectation for LSU is national championship. And while it started there this year, it quickly devolved into more questions than answers being posed about this team and about the direction of the direction of the program. I have no clue what the future holds, and even just the slightest sense of what is even going to happen after this bye week going into Bama. But I think one of the questions I have for you, because I am happy that this move has happened, because I do think that LSU and Brian Kelly needed to split. While the $54 million buyout is aggressive, I was ready to like lock in for another 2 years of being upset so that they didn't have to pay this buyout. But apparently that wasn't what happened. So me long-windedly saying, Jarrett.
Yeah, you hit on like 6 different topics in there that I think need to all be gotten into.
Yeah. So let's kind of break it down one by one. What's your initial reactions of this, of kind of what happened, and kind of let's hit some of those points that I was just kind of long-windedly getting out.
Yeah, I mean, we talked last week, and I did not think Brian Kelly would be fired. I mean, certainly not imminently, and I didn't know that it would happen this season because of the financial piece of all of it. And then, I mean, to that point, they lost 2 out of their last 3, but they were both close games on the road to top 10 teams and all of those things. But they come home and not only lose to Texas A&M, but it was in embarrassing fashion. They got ran off of their own home field in the second half. I mean, just bullied by A&M in a way that you rarely see LSU get bullied. And the fans that were there, who I thought had good energy, all things considered, at the start of that game, good contingents of them while they were there.
That first half was good. The first half was like a solid back and forth football game. And then I don't know what happened at halftime, but literally the wheels fell off.
We can get into that too, but through the course of the game, even early, there were contingents, heavily the student section, but I mean, contingents that were chanting "Fire Kelly." by fairly early in the fourth, like most of that stadium was empty. By the end of it, it was almost all A&M fans. And honestly, just as an aside, shout out to the LSU fans that did stay and like held their ground. And in the student section, A&M kids took over. And even in videos of that, you saw just like disappointed LSU fans who stayed, and give those kids like free tickets for life or whatever for putting up with what Saturday night became. But by the end of it, A&M had essentially taken over Tiger Stadium, and you heard more chants of 8-0 and Elko and all of that. And so the entire scene was just really embarrassing in a way that was difficult for Woodward and the Board of Supervisors, and I think everyone involved and passionate about LSU football to swallow. When you mentioned the game component of it, there were a couple of big plays in the first half that really swung some things and made it look better for LSU than what most of the first half actually was, where you couldn't convert third downs, you could not contain Marcel Reed, you had a couple of nice runs but couldn't establish consistency there. And then
Also,
in the second
Nuss
half,
was missing some easy throws. Sorry to interrupt you too. There were just some stuff that was like, hey, I remember one pass and he just was off, but the dude had a wide open, literally would have gone for at least 30-40. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
Nuss hasn't looked right all season, and you couldn't protect him again. Right off the bat, he's on his ass on the turf because you have a freshman guard potentially who's starting at left tackle and is on an island with no help to his side of the formation and just gets blown by one of the best pass rushers in the game and lighting up Nussmeier to disrupt the first possession. And then on the other side, the third possession, the same pass rusher blows by your redshirt freshman who's again on an island and just destroys Nuss. And so that's how the first two of the first three possessions ended, were your two freshman tackles who are talented, but you know they're freshmen, and you talked all week about the fact that you're going to need to give them help. They're without help and getting eaten alive by Cassius Howell. So the first half, I think, because of a punt block and a couple of interceptions, which we said going in, Marcel Reed is exceptional, but he is prone to some mistakes, and you have a good secondary at LSU. And they made some plays. I say secondary. Howard Perkins had one of those interceptions, but it was tipped by Mansour Delane.
Yep.
But those plays helped a lot. But in the second half, A&M just executed and played more to their standard, and LSU was not in the same class on the field in terms of execution elements, but also just, I mean, a toughness. And that's where, coming out of Saturday night, talking about it post game, I felt like it was really ugly. Joe Sloan felt like for sure was going to be fired, despite the fact that I thought there were way bigger issues than just offensive play calling, which I'm not saying that Joe has been perfect, but when you're getting beat up the way that LSU has been beat up, and when just the attitude of the program in a lot of ways looks the way it looked, I felt like the money involved was going to potentially save Brian Kelly, but that trying to fire Sloan as sort of the scapegoat was not going to fix the issues. And then Sunday, late Saturday night and Sunday unfolded where there was a push to Kelly of essentially, you can, from what I'm told, you can stay, but these are the moves that are going to be made, and we're kind of taking more control over some of these things. And he kind of bristled at that and offered an alternative, and it kind of escalated from there. And then a series of meetings happened throughout the day Sunday that pretty quickly became very clear that, they were trying to move on from Brian Kelly, and it was more of just a matter of kind of leveraging what could we bring that number down to make it more palatable. But ultimately they knew that a big change needed to be made if this program is going to be turned into the program that we expect it to be.
Listen, up here in Chicago, the amount of Notre Dame fans were like, last night, they were like, yeah, you guys get it now too.
And
it's the only time that I've been on the same page with Notre Dame fans, by the way.
Just like circling back to the Brian Kelly hiring and all of the snark from Notre Dame fans and all of those things, I don't know that I'd say I'm surprised by how things went. When he was hired, I thought, I don't love a lot of elements of the fit or kind of, some
Yeah.
of the personality dynamics that he's bringing, but he is a competent manager of a football program in a way that LSU hadn't had since Nick Saban. And so knowing how much success had been had with chaos over the last decade plus, that he was somebody that could kind of organize some things and build some things back from a really bad, as we've said several times, a really bad roster situation where they were down at points to like 40 playable players at
Yeah.
times the last couple of years, 40 scholarship players the last couple of years under O. And so I just thought some of the organizational elements, along with everything that LSU kind of naturally brings to the table, was going to set this program up to win a national championship in his first 5 years or so. And instead, I was pretty quickly frustrated with him coming in and cleaning house and getting rid of guys like Tommy Moffitt, who was integral in A&M being what A&M is right now, getting rid of Corey Raymond, who you kind of gradually realized had been a mistake to let go, and bring him back. And now the secondary is strong again. And there's just been a disconnect from pretty early on. And you thought after some of those early mistakes that maybe bringing back Corey, bringing back Blake, some of the moves, that they were trending in the right direction. But what became clear over the last month is that was not the case. And that I think the issues were bigger than what firing a coordinator was going to be able to solve.
No, 1000%. I think that word disconnect really like kind of hits home and hits everything. It just has felt from the time that he got in, there's been a disconnect between him and the fans. And coming from where LSU was, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I just, you mentioned kind of the dynamic with the media and stuff too. I honestly, in terms of his interactions with us, I know the lasting image is going to be the snapback at Cobble and y'all are spoiled and this and that. He was smoother to deal with for us than I expected when he arrived, and we had more access to practice and those things, still limited, but more than we'd had in a long time. And he had his own personality and a snarky, and he mentioned last week like a Boston, Massachusetts wise ass to him that rubbed some people the wrong way, but he was largely fine with us. And even in some of those moments, while he may have been snarky, I think part of it was also, there was a relationship there that he kind of knew that we had more of an understanding of him and that personality at least, but that still doesn't erase that the fit dynamics that we're talking about and issues there, where there was not a connection with the fan base, certainly. And it just, even down to Saturday night where he says LSU has a proud tradition, they, and he mentioned a couple of times they, and you could tell like he was kind of outside of it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh man. So where does LSU go next? A lot of names being thrown around right now, from Lane Kiffin to John Summerall, Dan Lanning, just the whole gamut of stuff. There are a lot of jobs open in the Power Four, Florida, Penn State, LSU, Oklahoma State. I personally, and I have I wouldn't say, I can't look at this fairly. I think LSU is the best job out of the bunch for someone to come into. But realistically, what are we kind of looking at for the next LSU head coach?
Well, you're right. I mean, that's your kind of fan perspective, and you like preempted that. But LSU, of the jobs that's available right now, I think is pretty widely and objectively considered the best available job from even a national perspective, and from hearing kind of behind the scenes of, talking to coaches who are connected to coaches and stuff like that, and recognizing the intrigue that LSU presents coaches, including some of those names you mentioned, and coaches at other Power Four programs that are doing well, and all of those things. LSU is, like we talked about some with Florida last week with Billy Napier, situated in a talent hotbed, but LSU has no other Power Four contenders in the state to deal with. And coaches around the country have seen Les Miles not be able to manage a clock, but be able to win a championship and compete for another. And they've seen Ed O and some of the chaos that was involved in that regime go have arguably the best college football season in the history of the game. And so guys that are extremely competitive and want to compete for national championships and really confident in what they bring to the table compared to some of their peers look at that and say, man, if those guys can win there and that talent base is there and there's an investment there where this program wants to win at that level so badly that they'll can Brian Kelly when they see it trending the wrong direction and not wait around and go through mediocrity just to eat that cost, or they see an opportunity where they can go compete and win, start sounding like LeBron, like not just one national championship, but two, and start rattling them off. And so all of any name that you hear, I mean, don't over buy into it, but at the same time, don't write anyone off.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see, is Lanning realistic because Oregon's loaded with money, and while he may want to compete in the SEC and LSU may try to throw some money his way, like how realistic is it to pull him from Nike essentially and company up there? But I'm not taking it off of the back burner in my brain and ignoring it either. And so that's kind of the quality of the LSU job. And it's going to be super interesting to go through this cycle over the next month and a half, partially because another reason why I didn't know that we'd be here is they have an interim president right now. So you've got the governor, Jeff Landry, in the mix. And, there's been some calls for Scott Woodward's job from the fan base. And so just who the players are and what this looks like over the next month and a half of developing with an interim president and trying to get a new president there. There's a lot of like really interesting caveats to this, but also an inability to wait very long because of the nature of college football and recruiting and needing to have a roster in place for next year as well.
Now, so with that, have they announced who the interim head coach will be moving forward?
Yeah. So Frank Wilson will be the interim for the rest of the season. Joe Sloan is also out. Alex Atkins taking over play calling duties. Trying to think of other notables. With Frank moving up to his role, Corday Hankton, one of the analysts, a New Orleans guy, is going to get an opportunity to work more hands-on with the running backs. And so far, everything else is kind of intact with Tim Rattay still being involved working with quarterbacks. Maybe a bigger role now that Joe's been relieved of his duties. Cortez Hankton, Corday's brother, obviously has been the co-offensive coordinator to Joe. And so Tez will be that much more involved with Alex as kind of a passing game coordinator.
Yeah. And, it's no big deal. Next up is Alabama. So should be fun.
Yeah, look, I think those guys, starting with Frank at the top and everybody that I mentioned and everybody still on staff, that there's going to be in energization, if is that a word? Those guys are going to energize.
I love that you're doing a me. That's really good.
Yeah. that you'll see an energy from this team. I don't know realistically like what potential should be expected from the fan base of how to finish this thing, because you do still have 2 road games to ranked SEC opponents. And like, there are a lot of issues that you're not going to just flip a switch and all of a sudden everything's solved in the span of a week and a half or whatever. But I think this is a super talented team. I think there are dudes on this team that want to compete at a high level and prove that what we've seen through 8 games is not their best, because I don't think either of us or anyone really thinks that it's their best. There's a reason we were talking about this team as a potential playoff team. And I think that Frank is someone, and guys that are still on the staff are people that they can rally around and kind of, put up certainly a better showing than what we watched Saturday night.
Now, one thing I did want to kind of get into is the recruiting aspect of this, which you kind of touched on a bit. Is there anyone that was, I mean, all these are Brian Kelly's recruits that LSU had on their recruiting board. Is there anyone that you can see, or you even just have heard might now flip from LSU, or are all those recruits kind of in place for the time being, with people who have committed to LSU, things like that, or people that are on their board that they're really going after? Does this kind of sway either one way or the other? Which obviously it does, but how much so?
The odd news is that actually Monday morning LSU added a commitment from Kervin Johnson Jr., a receiver in Tioga, and like that's the timeline of that is just coincidental. He received his offer Saturday. He's an in-state kid that was committed to Louisiana Tech. LSU, the home state school, became his first Power 4 offer, and he didn't want to wait around. And for him, he's one of those kids that essentially it didn't matter what the other offers were going to be or who the coach is going to be. He wants to be an LSU Tiger. And the fortunate news for LSU fans as well is that a lot of this class, I think, has some similarities to that. The in-state guys, for the most part, I think are going to be pretty locked into wanting to play for LSU. They may field a couple more calls than they would have if there was more stability in place right now. But a lot of these guys want to wear purple and gold at the next level. And also, a lot of these guys, both in-state and out-of-state, are committed more so to whether it be LSU or their position coaches. Guys like Haven Finney Jr., the corner from Los Angeles, has been in love with, the way that Corey Raymond develops his corners from the time that Haven's recruitment started. And so Corey is the big person for Haven. Guys, out-of-state edge rushers that have great relationships with Kevin Peoples. Frank Wilson's been heavily involved in recruiting a lot of this class. And so the fact that a lot of those guys are intact right now and that we're waiting to see what happens with them means that for these prospects, while there's no guarantee they stay in the class right now, they're remaining committed to their guys. And some of them had good relationships with Brian Kelly and may mention him in the conversation of, or may have mentioned him in the conversation of why they're committed. Brian Kelly was generally like a second, third, fourth type mention when you ask the guys why they committed, with higher reasons for what drew them to LSU. And now it'll be interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
they will hear from other teams that are trying to sway them and say, look, there's going to be a new coach. He's not going to keep Corey. He's not going to keep Frank, et cetera, et cetera. And so how this staff approaches some of those conversations with the guys and how the administration and the hiring process approaches some things with this staff are going to be super interesting, because if you make a hire and Corey and Frank and a couple of these guys stay in place, then that's going to bode really well for keeping most of this class in place. But if it's a complete clean house, then that's obviously a much different dynamic.
Right. Oh man, so much is going to happen in the next couple months with this LSU team. Not where I think either of us expected this team to be at this point in the season. But you got to take things as they come, obviously. Anything else to kind of say, or that you want to hit on this? Because I mean, this is what obviously we devoted a majority of the show to, because this news is that big.
This is what I have devoted much of my week to at this point.
Yes.
So that's kind of where we're at with this. But I think it's important to emphasize, and we kind of mentioned it before, but that $53.3 million buyout dynamic, they're not going to end up paying that full amount. And that's part of the conversation. That's why this is dragging on, is sort of, finalizing some of the details of what the exact separation agreement looks like, how much it's going to be, how long it will be spread out over. It's kind of crazy. They're still paying Orgeron until December of this year. And so that just kind of, I think
that's crazy to me.
That both illustrates that this isn't like turning around and saying, here's your check for $53 million, Brian. This is something that the athletic department has more ability to kind of stretch out and navigate in a more manageable way for the years to come. But it also illustrates that they've still been paying that money. They're now about to be paying whatever the final number is. I've seen thrown around like 20 million of that buyout that will be paid to Brian Kelly, that will be part of your finances now moving forward as you navigate, okay, who is our next hire? How much money do we have to invest in player money and all of those things? And so there's a lot of interconnected moving pieces financially that come into play that will make it interesting when you potentially go big fish hunting and are trying to pry away a Lane Kiffin or a Dan Lanning, just as two names that we've mentioned so far, versus, okay, is John Summerall the guy? How differently does that look financially than the like 15 million that Lane would probably fetch? And so some of that interplay is going to be really interesting in this hire, but it's important that fans realize that LSU didn't just hand Brian Kelly a $50 million check to say go away.
Oh man. Well, I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I played Ray Charles classic, Hit the Road Jack last night several times. So, man, this is it's a lot to kind of wrap your brain around. But for so long, I let my happiness be dictated by 18 to 22-year-old kids, and it's it's really weird that that is now going into someone losing their job. So I don't know. All of this is just, it's weird. We're in a weird spot as the LSU program. So I'm very interested to see kind of what turns they take and moving forward in this. And like you said, I with the Lane Kiffin thing, can we just talk about, like, I would just always be scared that Lane Kiffin is going to leave. It's like when you date a chick that you know is like much hotter than you, and then you get scared that she's going to go cheat on you with someone else, that you inevitably like play into that because of your insecurities. That's what I feel like if Lane Kiffin were to come here and be like, yeah, but what if USC calls again and he needs to go out and get that LA money again? I don't know. What if Tennessee actually wants to take him back? What if something happens to Ryan Day and he immediately takes Ohio State or Michigan or whatever? I would just always have in the back of my head, he's going to leave. So I would kind of want them to go. I know we talked about Dan Lanning and Lane Kiffin, but somewhere in that, like, Summerall range, somewhere in the range of kind of what they did when they brought in Nick Saban, and they kind of really did some legwork and brought in a coach that necessarily wasn't a big name at the time, but was up and coming and was obviously the right hire. He was one of the best coaches, maybe the best college football coach ever. So I would love to see something where there's just a little bit more time taken, and instead of just going and get the big splashy, sexy hire.
Yeah. I felt for a second there like we were almost sidestepping into you thinking that you were in your therapy session, that you showed some vulnerability there. But I think the dynamic that you mentioned of being concerned about a Lane specifically leaving is, I mean, how many coaches have left the LSU football program and not been fired? And when you're someone like Lane, who I think may very well, view LSU as good of a job that there is in college football, that probably becomes a job that you don't leave as long as the money is similar, is close, and you feel like you've got the level of alignment and buy-in and working flexibility and freedom and support and all those things. And so this LSU is as much of a destination job to the objective college football coach as just about any in the country. And Lane is also an interesting guy that might not jive great with some of those other places around the country, but I think that LSU fans would largely gravitate to pretty well. The thing with Lane that worries me more is just the continued, this is a program that is well supported financially, and we're seeing that, but some of the dynamics of, okay, you're about to pay 20 million or whatever it ends up being for BK, and you need to have the money for the recruits, and are you going to have to outbid Ole Miss and Florida and whoever else to go get Lane potentially? Like, how does that start to look for a program that, while there is support, we're not like loaded with this Texas oil money here quite the same way, or we've seen some of the dynamics when you start battling a Michigan for Bryce Underwood and how quickly those checks kind of become, there's a separation in size of some of those checks at play. So just in terms of the initial amount that it may take to pull that off, all of that becomes interesting. I think Lane would do a great job here. I think Summerall would do a great job here. Those are two names that I would be really excited for LSU if those ended up being the end of this. And for the Saban comp, no matter how much due diligence you put in and how much effort you put into the hire, Saban was Saban, and for every Saban that a program thinks they've found, like one of them out of 1,000 hits, and so it's such a crapshoot with how it plays out.
One interesting name that I kind of heard, just an internet fodder, which I don't think would happen, but I think it's just kind of cool to even put out there, is Kelvin Shepard, DC, former LSU player up in Detroit right now. Detroit has one of the best defenses on paper this season. And obviously him being an LSU guy, I would also love to see LSU's first black head coach. That would be great. But that was something, that and Summerall are the two that I like, my ears kind of like perked up a little bit. Like the meme of someone going, that's where I was. So
Shep would be interesting to me. I have more intrigue for that, honestly, than the Joe Brady in terms of some of the NFL guys with LSU connections piece of it all. I'm interested to see if Joe Brady ends up an NFL head coach, obviously, this year. But Shep, I think, brings a lot of intensity, and he's obviously a young guy that is not as far removed from being a player at LSU age-wise as most of these other hires would be. Although I'm not trying to make Summerall or Lane sound too old. They're not old men, but I mean, Shep is not very far removed. Shep was playing. I was covering the team when Shep was playing, and so he's not that far removed from all of this. For him, it's obvious he's early on in his coaching career, ultimately, and he's doing very well with it. But when you talk about just wanting to see kind of that proven coaching commodity over a little bit more time, he doesn't have as much of that as Lane, obviously, who's led a program that has been one of the winningest programs since he took over in 2020, or even Summerall, who has done great things at lower level comparatively to the SEC programs at Troy and Tulane. But there's certainly a lot to like with all these guys.
What about Deion Sanders? Let's bring that circus over here. That'd be.
I'm not prepared for that mentally, emotionally, like sleep schedule wise.
Oh my God. Yeah. We will keep you updated, obviously, with the LSU coaching search and just the way the rest of this kind of season goes. Obviously, that's what we do here at PODnas. But let's talk about Tyler Shuck getting in the game.
Tell me, I was entirely Brian Kelly yesterday. Was my entire focus.
He looked fine. It looked a little bit of the same. There's an interception that wasn't his fault. It was just a really good play. Throws the ball to Rashid Shaheed, and literally the defender is tangled up with Shaheed and just comes away with the ball. But there wasn't too much. We don't really need to get into that at all. Is there anything else you want to hit on this LSU Brian Kelly story?
Probably. I mean, I don't know. There's so much, and it's going to be something that we're talking about for the next month and a half, as the coaching search dynamic continues to develop. But I've seen fans of other programs that have been on Twitter essentially congratulating LSU for the commitment to competing at a high level, to not wait around and to recognize things heading in a concerning direction and to nip that in the bud and make a move sooner than later. And I would largely agree with that. Like, I think after watching the way Saturday played out, that it did not look encouraging for, it wasn't just a bad Saturday. There were elements that were concerning for just the trajectory.
I was on Twitter and scrolled by Van Lathan, Ringer, had a post, but he said this very well, and I just wanted to give shouts to where I heard it from. That LSU fans have lost faith in Brian Kelly, and you can regain trust, but it's really hard to regain faith, like faith in someone. And
Damn,
that just kind of stuck
damn,
with me.
Van. That's
Yeah.
deep, man.
That kind of stuck with me. Like it's hard to when you lose faith in someone, it's hard to get that back. Like you can build trust back, you can, but when the faith is gone, which it very clearly felt like it was, especially from the fan base perspective towards Brian Kelly, it's really hard to get that back. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah,
There were notable segments of the fan base that he had never won over in the first place. And then I think for a while now he had lost a lot of others. And Saturday really, I mean, it felt like, and it obviously proved to be, but kind of that nail in the coffin of the tenure. It was bad. It was one that, and right on the heels of losing to Vandy, who we explained last week, look, this wasn't the same Vandy team. This is a legitimately high level team that Clark Lee has completely turned into a legitimate contender of an SEC program to at least, try to make a college football playoff appearance. But going to Vandy and losing is tough for a lot of people to come back from, and then getting the brakes blown off of you at home and having A&M of all places win in Baton Rouge for the first time as an SEC program and take over your stadium.
yeah.
It was pretty ugly 1-2 punch knockout.
Also, it was very cute that the A&M players did the get the gat dance like they had just won a national championship. But the difference is that when we do that dance, it happens in the White House celebrating a ship. So can it?
Yeah,
Aggies.
I mean, didn't even feel like the same level of swagger to
No,
it. Just, I
it
mean,
didn't.
going through the
Yeah.
motions.
Yeah. It felt forced. All right. It was giving forced. All right.
100%. Good ass football team though. Mike Elko's
Yeah.
doing a hell of a job in College Station.
Yes.
I respect that program more than I ever have in my entire lifetime.
Yes.
So shout out to the job that those guys are doing.
Hey, yeah, just a lot going on. But we do have some other stuff to get to today in this Brian Kelly packed episode. Real quick, Podnas pick 7. I beat Jarrett this week because I'm better than him. Mainly because I picked Memphis and Grambling. I went 6-1. Jared went 5-2. We kind of won't get into that. There was so much other stuff going on today. But just I would say any notable stuff coming out of that was USF losing, kind of giving Tulane that kind of opportunity to maybe take advantage. I mean, Tulane and Memphis both now have there's a light, before the game, it was USF had I think it was like a 65% chance to get that non-power 4 slot for the playoff. And Tulane and Memphis were both in that 15-16%. That jumps up dramatically. If Tulane can kind of just keep winning the rest of this season, they'll have a really good shot to be looked at as one of these college football playoff teams. So, yeah,
Yeah, I think for them, rightfully, they're going to take this thing week by week and try to take care of business and focus on taking care of business this week against UTSA and so on and so forth. They have very clear in recent years, including last Thanksgiving, examples of how quickly all of these college football playoff hopes can go off the rails with one bad day. And so they should know better than that. But for us on the outside of it, they now will head November 7th to Memphis. And if they beat UTSA this week, that sets up a hugely pivotal game, obviously, on the road at Memphis. And we'll be watching that one for sure. And the only other note that I would say from the pick 7 stuff is congrats to Grambling on that win out there in Vegas. And hopefully Zay T-Set, who had a great game, but unfortunately was knocked out and is kind of battling. We're still waiting to hear how he's doing. Coming back from that hard hit late in the fourth quarter of that game. But hated to see that for Zay, former Scotlandville star, who I had a chance to cover both football and basketball, and thinking of him and his family and everybody, and hoping that he can shake back from, whatever the extent of that injury is that he's going through right now. And credit to Amani Darrensburg, the freshman from JFK in New Orleans, who came in cold with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and when it was able to kind of pick up on that game-winning drive where Zay left off, and make sure they got that thing done with the McCormick kick.
Cool. Hey, I beat you, so that's really what we wanted me to focus on. So 6-1. I'm pretty good at this stuff now. I've really, I've really locked in.
You've locked in, and you're just blossoming and blooming before our very eyes as a prognosticator. It's incredible.
I'm maturing. I'm maturing in front of our very eyes. If we don't got anything else, I think we should get into the plays of the week. The high school top plays of the week. I would say it's the best part of the week, but something else happened that was pretty good.
How much cushion do I need to give these graphics or whatever that you put on every week before I get into the actual plays?
It's already done. Don't even worry about it.
Okay, cool. Good. Well, let's get into it. So I think this clip is actually from our guy John Eads at WAFB again. Where I saw it was Live Oak High School posted the ESPN top plays clip from their television, but it's clearly there's the bug on there from WAFB, the local station. And right after we wrap up seeing a second of Zion Williamson leading into this with a number 8 play, you get Calvin Urson, the sophomore from Live Oak. Caden Jones, you see there with the pass, and Calvin Deuce Urson, the first 2028 prospect in Louisiana to receive an offer from LSU earlier this year with the one-handed touchdown grab. Santa Ma was able to get the win in this game. It was the highest scoring shootout of the week. Santa Ma, I think it was 55-52, beats Live Oak, but a hell of a one-handed grab by Calvin Urson from Caden Jones. Tremendous play there from Deuce. Someone we'll be watching for years to come, certainly for the Eagles the next 2.5 years, and then for LSU fans, hopefully in some purple and gold down the road when his 2028 class is able to make their college decisions. Also, shout out to, I don't think the audio is on there, but shout out to ESPN for correctly pronouncing, or close to pronouncing correctly, Santa Ma. I think they said Santa Ma. They at least got the Ama part right, so good job, ESPN.
Way to go, worldwide leader in sports.
This one is a play from Huntington late in a loss to Calvary Baptist. I don't have the names on all of the many Raiders involved in this. The roster I have on Huddle is not up to date with some of these numerals on these guys' chests and backs to match up names with. But this play is one you're not going to see a whole lot. The hook and lateral.
Whoa.
And option. The double lateral on the hook and ladder play, and then speeding up the sidelines. So
wow. Oh,
Calvary,
we gotta see that again.
Calvary Baptist wins this game, but I don't know how often you practice defending a hook and double lateral situation, and Huntington executes it to perfection, something that I'm told that they work on pretty consistently. We've had them on a double pass play earlier in the season, whereas a little throw out to the wide receiver and then a deep shot downfield. And so Coach John Ray Simon in his first year as a head coach there at Huntington has these guys ready against some of the other top teams in the state to pull some tricks out the bag and make things interesting. And they certainly did here late before a couple late scores by Calvary helped seal this thing away. But yeah, just one more look at a play that we're not going to see attempted often during the course of a football season, let alone executed to that level of perfection.
Yeah, that was amazing.
This was a big play from up in the 318 as well. Shortly before halftime, Alexandria is trailing Ruston. Ruston's looking deep, and another sophomore, Raymond Harris III for Alexandria, with a one-handed pick over the middle of the field. A nice return to set up a touchdown. Shortly thereafter, in the final seconds, I think it was the next play, if I'm not mistaken, the touchdown throw to take a lead into the break. Alexandria was trailing in this game early, 21-3, comes back and takes a 24-21 lead at halftime, goes on to win 45-28.
Wow.
And this Raymond Harris interception over the middle was a huge turning point play to continue stacking momentum into the locker room. Shout out again to the sophomore for the Trojans. We'll get one more look at this thing here, making up some ground, making the beautiful catch, and then getting some return yardage, knowing that there's only 20 seconds left in the half to set up that offense for another 6 or 7 points, really. And then we've been shouting out all these sophomores, man. How about a freshman?
Okay.
A freshman up at Gina, Kenyon Jones.
Oh,
Mr. on the spot to scoop that bunky lateral, bounces right to him, and he has the awareness as and this is going to make me feel old, a 2029 graduate eventually. Ken Jones returns that thing, big play in what became a big win for the Gina Giants up there against rival Bunky. A game that's going to go a long way in determining that district, a top 10 matchup in Class 3A on a statewide level. And Ken Jones off that second bounce, not breaking his stride, secure catch and run to the end zone for a defensive score that loomed large in a big old win for the Gina Giants.
Those are our top plays of the week, and now we need your help to help us pick which one is going to win. All you got to do is go to our Instagram, PODnas_LA, and vote which play you think is going to be the best play of the week. We'll announce our winner on the preview show at the end of the week. No LSU game this week, so we will have a Podnas Pick 7 for the rest of the state. But yeah, go check that out. Anything else you want to say before we run into these socials and get out of here?
No, that's about it. It's going to be a pretty light weekend overall, honestly, because there are some other
Tulane's on Thursday.
Tulane plays Thursday, etc. And so I'm looking forward to watching a couple of national games with some fam and whatnot on Saturday. But
yeah, absolutely. That Oklahoma-Tennessee game should be really good too. So that one's coming up this weekend in the SEC. But hey, thanks so much for spending part of your day with us. We really appreciate it. Please like, share, comment if you're watching on YouTube, and check out the website, LouisianaVersusAllYall.com. Hit us up on socials, LA versus all y'all on Twitter and Instagram, Podnas_LA on Instagram. And hey, if you see a top play this week, send it to us. That we would love to get them on here. So that's all we got for you today. Thanks for coming out, Podnas.